Hey everyone, and welcome to our channel.
And if you've ever wondered how to connect to the internet while living completely off the grid, then this video is for you. While there are many internet solutions out there for remote areas, we wanted one that wouldn't result in us having any additional monthly fees on top of what we already pay for our mobile phones.
So we decided to try out the Cel-Fi Go Repeater device on the Telstra network.
While setting up the device, I struggled to find information out there about all of the questions that I had. So once we figured it all out, I decided let's make a video about it all to share what we learned.
And so we have a bit of information to cover today, so we're going to split the video up into 6 parts.
In the first part, we'll share an overview of all of the components that comprise the system, including the repeater device, the external Yagi antenna, and the internal service antenna.
In the second part, we'll share how we installed everything in our off-grid caravan. This will include information about how to connect the antennas and power source to the device, and also how we get the external antenna 10 meters in the air.
In the third part, we'll share the resources we used for setting up the directional Yagi antenna to find out how to aim it in the right direction to get the most direct path to our nearest cell phone tower.
In the fourth part, we'll take you through the actual process of setting up the product on our off-grid land, including the product registration process and also a demo of how we aim the antenna to get the best connection.
In part 5, we'll share some considerations for whether this product can work for you.
In the 6th and final part, we'll provide an honest review after using this product for 6 months.
So buckle up and get ready to learn all about repeaters and how to get the most out of your device. And so before we get started, as a quick disclaimer, this video is about our experience and what has worked for us. We are a young couple living off-grid in Australia, and so we're not technicians and we're not commissioned by any company, so this is not an official guide to the product. Another really important thing to note here is that there are also illegal versions of this device that you can purchase online for a smaller fee. However, illegal boosters work in a very different way, and they're also really dangerous to use because they can interfere with the network, and as such they make it inaccessible for other people, including emergency services. This is why in Australia you can be fined up to hundreds of thousands of dollars for using an illegal booster. So just don't use illegal boosters. And what we'll be covering here is the Cel-Fi Go Repeater that's going to be registered on the Telstra network. So this device is fully legal to use in Australia. Alright, now that we've covered that, let's have a closer look at all of the individual components that comprise the system. So now, without further ado, let's take a look at the actual Telstra Go Repeater device. So here it is in front of the camera. As you can see, it's pretty compact and it's simple to set up in the sense that it only has 3 connections. On one side, we have the external donor antenna that plugs in. On the other side, we have the internal service antenna that plugs in. And we also have a power inlet at the top of the device here. And there's only one button as well, which is used to change the band settings from 3G to 4G or to auto, which of course can also be changed in the Bluetooth app, which we'll cover later. And now, in a nutshell, the way this device works is by picking up the weak signal from our nearest tower and amplifying it so that our mobile phone can connect to it. And now behind me in the distance there is our external directional Yagi antenna, which is also known as the donor antenna in the system. Now this antenna needs to be pointed directly at our nearest phone tower to get the best connection. And as part of the package, this antenna also came with a 10-meter long ultra low resistance coaxial cable that was included in the cost of the antenna. And the connection from this antenna to the cable has been weatherproofed with self-amalgamating tape. And now this antenna can boost the signal by up to 12 decibels. And if you're planning on using the Telstra Go Repeater in your car, then the omnidirectional bull bar antenna is the way to go. Now, if you're not familiar with the term omnidirectional, it means that it can pick up the signal in any direction. As long as the antenna is positioned vertically, it doesn't matter where the nearest tower is, the antenna picks up the signal all around it. And that's the advantage of this antenna, that it can just stay vertical wherever you go. However, it only boosts the signal by 6 decibels as opposed to the 12 decibels that's offered by the bigger directional antenna. Next up, we've got the inside antenna, also known as the service antenna. And that's this little thing over here. This one's designed for the car, and it's got an adhesive surface on the back, and that can just be stuck underneath the dashboard. And this provides you with signal enough to use the device within your car. However, in our package, we also got this little donor antenna that can be stuck onto the car with a little magnet. And so when we visited the manufacturer of these antennas, they actually advised us that they can be used in reverse. And so we ended up using this mini donor antenna, mini external antenna, as our internal antenna, and it's done a pretty good job. It gives us a little bit more range within the caravan that we live in, to the point where we can have our phones connected within a 2-meter radius around the caravan. So now that we've familiarized ourselves with the different components, let's take a look at how the system is installed. In our system, everything begins with the external directional Yagi antenna that you can see behind me over there. And so you might be wondering, Alex, why does your caravan look like you're trying to make contact with aliens? And this is simply because we're in a really low-lying area with lots of dense vegetation surrounding our property, and the signal travels best through air. And so the higher the antenna is raised, the more obstacles we avoid to get a more direct path to the nearest tower. And this leads us to the question of, how high can you go? And the answer to this question lies in the maximum length of the ultra low loss coax cable that you can have before you start losing signal in the cable itself, that offsets any gain in the signal that you would get by going any higher. And this is something that's recommended by the actual manufacturer of these cables. And of course, if you have a really tall roof, you can hence elevate the antenna even more by securing the repeater device on your ceiling. And so the other thing to consider is how you're actually going to get the 10-meter pole in the air if you do use one, because I know for me, this thing is not the easiest to lift, and that's while I'm standing on firm ground. Now in this clip, you can see this simple U-bolt and bracket design that secures nicely on a round pole with an external diameter of about 50 millimeters. And so the other challenge that we had with using a 10-meter tall pole is that most manufacturers actually don't make them, and most vehicles are too short to transport them. So what we did, like you can see in the image here, is we used 2 poles that are of slightly differing diameters, and so one just slots into the other, and then we drilled some holes throughout the whole thing and secured those with some M8 bolts, nuts and washers. And in this clip you can see how we actually raised the 10-meter tall post up in the air, and also how it is clamped using the jockey wheel holder in our caravan A-frame. And let me tell you, this thing is not light when held right near the pivot point near the A-frame clamp. And for best results, the Yagi antenna will need to be pointed at your nearest phone reception tower. And so once you know the location of your nearest phone tower, this is a process of trial and error until you get the best position for the optimum signal reading. And so if you don't know where your nearest phone tower is, in part 3 I'll be sharing some really valuable resources for locating your nearest phone towers on a map. And so we're back inside for this one, and we've got the Cel-Fi Go Repeater ready to install in our caravan. And so the process is not too complex here. We just connect the donor antenna to one end of the device, and we connect the service antenna to the other end of the device. And I'll just give you a quick demo of how this is done. So this is the end of one of the antennas. And so you can see that there's a little nut on the end here. Now that might tempt you to get your spanner out and make the connection really, really tight, but the manufacturer of the antennas actually advised me not to do so because the connection is a little bit fragile. So they recommended that we just screw it on finger tight like so. Now the only thing to ensure when connecting your 2 antennas is that they're basically not too close together. So as a general guide, the antennas will need to be as far apart as you can have them, but also keep in mind that in a standard vehicle setup, the bull bar antenna is at the front of the car, and then the service antenna is under the dashboard, and that works just fine. And in case you're unsure, the Cel-Fi Wave app will actually let you know if there is interference between the two antennas. Alright, so now we've got both of our antennas connected to the repeater device, as we can see here. And so protruding through the wall up top is the ultra low loss coax cable from the outside antenna, and this plugs into this side of the repeater. And on the other side, we've got an inside service antenna. And the very last thing to do is to plug in our power adapter, which in our case, we're just using a 240 volt power supply. And connecting to the power is as simple as plugging the device in like so. However, before powering on the device, we still have a few more things to cover. Before using the repeater device, it will need to be registered with your network provider. For this, you'll need to download the Cel-Fi Wave app from your phone's app store. The Cel-Fi Wave app will also be used to gauge the best signal connection when aiming your antenna, and also when monitoring potential error messages for troubleshooting. Alright, we're almost ready to start searching for that sweet internet connection. But before that, we'll check out some really useful resources for locating your nearest phone towers. And so the very first resource I have to share is the one that I use to find our local phone towers. And I found this by searching just phone towers in my app store. And the very first result that came up after the ad was the AUS Phone Towers app. And this has been really good to use. So if we go ahead and open the app, we'll see a whole bunch of towers. So when you first enter the app, you'll see towers from all kinds of providers, and it might make the screen a little bit overwhelming. So what I do is, in the top left hand side, I filter the search results to just show our service provider, which is Telstra in this case. And then if you're using GPS and you're on your land, then that's easy. You'll see the nearest tower and you'll get a bunch of stats and the location of the tower in relation to your land shown automatically on the screen. But if you're using this at home, then a feature that I like to use to locate our land or our location on the map, and we can just hold our finger down to put a little marker down. And as you saw there, it gives us some stats for where the nearest tower is, how far away it is from us, and the approximate bearing. So we're 2.7 kilometers in this case at 340 degrees, and there is 90% confidence. So if the app says 90% confidence, most likely you're not going to need a booster device. But if you're a little bit more remote like we are, then you'll see the confidence might be anywhere from 50% even down to 0. So the other cool thing that we can see when we select a tower, aside from all of this frequency information, towards the bottom right hand side, you'll see there's a little Google icon there. And that's really cool because if we go ahead and click on that, we can see the exact location of the tower in our Google Maps app. And this has been really handy for us to figure out where exactly our local tower is, and then hence work out our bearings for how to point the Yagi antenna in the right direction. And so the second resource I have to share is one that's only really necessary if you're not sure if you have any hills or mountains in between you and your nearest tower. It's really easy to do in Google Earth Pro. So basically, towards the top left of the screen, we select the option to add a path. And once we know the location of us in relation to the nearest tower, we can go ahead and click on those 2 points in the map, and that generates a path. And so now we can name this path, for example, demo path. And now that we've created this line, we can go ahead and find it in the list of places on the left hand side. And once we right click on the line that we've just created, we have the option to show elevation profile. So that'll take a little bit to load. Once it does, you can see that, for example, if we're located all the way on the left hand side and the tower is all the way on the right hand side, you'll see that there's a few obstacles in the way. And in our case, the situation was a little bit like if in this case the tower was, say, here. We did have a couple of small hills in the way, but that's been fine for us being able to connect to our nearest tower. And having a look at the amount of obstacles in the way, can also give you an indication of how easy it will be to pick up the signal from the nearest tower. Okay, so now we've got the system fully installed. We've got the outside antenna there and it's pointing at the nearest tower. And the connection down the bottom is loosened just enough so that we can rotate the antenna to adjust its position to get the optimum signal reading. We've got the repeater device inside with both of the antennas plugged in and ready to go. So now it's time to connect the power source and to launch our Cel-Fi Wave app to commence the registration process. And now before we begin setting up the system, we have to consider the most important paradox that you'll hear in this whole video. And that is that it's true. The product needs to be registered first to be able to use the device. However, you need the internet to register the device so that you can use it to connect to the internet. This is a paradox that I went in circles for a while until a technician shed some light on it. In the process of doing my research, somebody told me that the way these devices work is that they actually provide you with a connection for about 5 or 10 minutes after you power the device on. Now, I haven't been able to find an official document on this, but I found that this has been true for us. And so we don't actually have an internet connection out here with which we would do the registration process. So it was good to see that the device was able to connect us to the internet so that we could actually complete the registration process without any issues. And of course, if you're planning on using the portable version of this device, then this is easy, no worries. You just register the device when you have reception, and then you can go wherever you like and the device will work for you. However, if that's not an option for you, then that's why I emphasized the previous resources for finding exactly where your nearest tower is, so that once you plug in the power to the device, you know exactly where to point the antenna and you can ensure that you have the best chances of registering the device successfully. So now it's finally time to power on the device, while at the same time switching on the Cel-Fi Wave app so that we can begin the registration process as soon as possible, while the device can provide us with an internet connection to do so. So if I can just show you at a quick glance, we've got the device synchronizing data. Now it's gathering data, which does seem promising, because that means we've been able to establish an internet connection and the process has begun. And so we already know the location of the nearest tower, so we've got the antenna pointed roughly in the direction of the nearest tower, and that's why we've been able to get the signal straight away. And so now we're registering our device. You'll probably see that on the screen. Let's go ahead and put in our name, surname, our phone number, and we need to put in our address too. Our address is very long.
Can confirm. Very, very long and very hard to spell.
I'm so excited. I'm going to press the register button. Let's see what happens. So it says please wait. Now it says authenticating. We've got a booster update available. So this is something that might happen to your device that's designed for you to connect to the internet. You'll need the internet to actually register the device that's required for you to have an internet connection. And then you might also need to update the device using an internet connection, which the device is designed to provide. Anyway, we can go in circles forever, but it looks like we're updating successfully. And if we can see in the background, all of the stats look really good. So we've got 30% signal strength, 87% signal quality, and things are looking good. So we're approaching 100% of our update installation. And now I'm sure we didn't really need to do this to get the device functional, but I thought while we're at it, let's just install the updates. If it makes the device any better, that's good for us. And this is actually a really true way to test that we have an internet connection, because within less than 5 minutes we fully downloaded and are now updating the software. So things are looking good. So now we're at 100% of installation. We're almost ready to start testing the device and rotating the antenna to get the most optimal signal. So I guess I'll stop showing the phone on the screen because you'll see it on the screen anyway. And so now we go to the advanced settings and to the radio band. So we're at negative 100 decibels for 3G. That is good stuff. However, we're interested in getting 4G. So let's go ahead and set the device to 4G. And the stats are almost as good. So we're at negative 115 decibels, which is really the highest number that you should be aiming for. So here the highest number is the lowest number. And so ideally we want to be below negative 115 decibels. But negative 115 decibels has worked really good for us. In fact, before we got this replacement device, when we first got this device, we had about 3 months of being able to connect to the internet without a single outage. So 3 months, even during windy, stormy days when it was pouring down and raining and there was lightning, and just before we turned the device off for the sake of being safe from lightning, we were still getting a great connection. So now let's go ahead and check out a step in this process that we've done countless times. And this is all about getting the most direct path from the repeater to the nearest tower. So we're just going to adjust the angle of our antenna slightly until we get the best reading that we can. And this is just a method of trial and error once you know the approximate location of your nearest tower. And for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to twist it away from the antenna now so that you can see the quality in the signal diminishing. Put on this one. So we saw here that we went from negative 116, negative 115 to negative 120 decibels. Let's keep trying until we hopefully get negative 112, negative 113. And the important thing with this as well is to, after you've twisted the antenna a little bit, to give the system a little bit of time to register that you've made a change. 5 seconds or so should give enough time for the app and for the repeater to update the new figures and to show them on the screen. Negative 121, that wasn't looking good at all. 117, we're getting there, getting better. 116. 115, that's the magic number. And we hit 113. Let's lock it in, Eddie. At this point, I'm pretty happy that we got a 30-year-old Caravan because I don't think newer ones have 2 jockey wheel holders. This has been very useful for us. And now for the ultimate internet test, let's see if we can load one of our off-grid city couple YouTube videos. We're in the YouTube app, it's looking promising. Oh, the first few videos loaded really quick. Let's go to my favorite one, and that's so far the tea tree distillation. Hey everyone, and welcome to our channel. My name is Alex. That's loaded in high definition. That's not even 360p. That looks like 1080 to me. That's awesome. We're back on the internet. And this marks the point where we now officially have internet on our off-grid land. Before moving off-grid, I really wanted to know, will this solution work for us? Should we invest more than $1,000 into something that's not guaranteed to work? And so to help to shed some light on this question, we'll cover the answer in 2 parts. And the very first consideration is whether you can find signal at least anywhere on your land, be it up in a tree or in some one particular spot on your land. If this is the case, then most likely this device will work for you. And of course, the higher you can get the antenna, the more you increase your chances of being able to secure a reliable connection. And the second consideration is how reliable is your local tower? So we did an experiment. We drove all the way up to our local tower where we could see it from our car, and we had full bars of reception, and we tried using the internet there. And so the speeds that we get right next to the phone tower is pretty much the same as the speed that we get using our booster. So that's just a natural thing where you're not going to be able to get more speed than the tower can provide. And so these are just a couple of indications that I've seen to be true. However, it's also good to check with whoever you purchase this device from what their return policy is. So in the unlikely event that you can't get it to work, some of the retailers that I've spoken to, they were happy to accept the device back as long as it was in as new condition. And so what is their experience of this product after 6 months of use? Well, for an accurate summary, I'll tackle this question in 3 parts. First, I'll talk about the product itself. Second, I'll talk about the experience that we've had of Telstra's customer support. And third, we'll let you know the final verdict after having tested the product in a variety of applications. First, in looking at the product, we were actually really impressed. Sarah works remotely for a company in the city, and when we first arrived here, we had to drive in our car to find reception. And this device has meant that we no longer have to do that. And so the whole concept that someone is able to work for an organization somewhere else while living completely off the grid in the bush is pretty amazing to me. And I was also able to make a video call to my grandparents all the way on the other side of the globe to show them our new lives. And we found that all of the various weather conditions that we've had didn't actually end up affecting our device all that much. During rain, we still had a good connection. During sunny weather, the connection is good. During cloudy weather, the connection is good. So the device is pretty reliable. However, the customer support side of things is not as straightforward to describe as the device itself. So to share our experience of what Telstra's customer service has been like for us, we'll share a few quick stories. Starting out with when we were first considering buying the Cel-Fi Go Repeater, I couldn't find some of the answers online to specific questions that I had about the registration process and about the installation process, and customer service weren't very helpful either. And so I decided to leave this stuff to the experts and proceed with a $500 installation that the customer support team kept referring me to. And so, long story short, when the technicians actually arrived on our land, they carried out some tests and made some phone calls from our land with just their mobile phone successfully. Following which, they determined that our land was actually a black spot and that the device wouldn't work for us. And the funny thing about this story is that as the technicians were leaving our land, their departure was delayed with a flat tire. And we thought, the universe works in funny ways. This must be a sign that we should keep trying. And as you would have seen in the video already, we made the device work for us. However, this wasn't the end of the story, unfortunately. And so, after 3 months of impeccable service, our device broke down. And so, after calling the remote coverage support team, we were told that actually, because we're in a black spot, that's why the device doesn't work for us. However, we knew that this wasn't true because we can still load videos very slowly, but we could load videos and we could make phone calls from our driveway. And so we called the Telstra complaints team, following which, after 10 minutes on the phone, they arranged for a replacement device to be sent out to our address. However, this isn't the end of the story either, because it turns out that they actually sent us the wrong device and we had to go to the post office and to reject the parcel. And following this, we asked when the correct device would be reissued to us, and this is when we were told that, actually, the technical team will need to give us a call now and to carry out some more troubleshooting. And this is where we get to another paradox, where the technical team wanted to give us a call, using a reliable cellular connection. The device that was designed to provide us with a reliable cellular connection was broken down. And so this went on for about 3 weeks until we finally reached out to the telecommunications industry ombudsman. And so after 3 weeks of no results at all, needless to say, our query was resolved within 24 hours. And Off-Grid City Couple was back on the internet again. And so onto our final verdict of the product. And in choosing the right internet solution for us, even after all of the challenges that we've been through, we're still happy that we went ahead with buying this product, because it's resulted in us in learning many new things, being creative, and not giving up despite being told by the experts that it won't work. Overall, the product does exactly what it's designed to do. For those seeking to meet their basic internet needs with just one upfront cost and no additional monthly fees other than what they already pay for their mobile phones, and considering there is at least some reception on your land, then this solution is definitely viable. Especially if you learn some tips from this video about how to expedite the process of getting the right customer support we all deserve, and also about the installation and registration process to get the most out of your device. However, as the final verdict of this product, the only real issue for us is the maximum speed that our nearest tower provides. Before we decided to start making YouTube videos that are more than 20 gigabytes in size, this solution worked really well for us. However, now, even if we drive right up to our nearest tower, we still can't get the speeds necessary to be able to upload videos successfully. And if we drive to our neighboring suburb and use the phone towers there, we can have upload speeds of up to 4 times faster. And so that just lets us know that the issue is with the tower itself as opposed to the device. As such, we have now signed up for the waitlist for Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet. And this really is the only other option for us, because local satellite internet providers won't actually service our land until we have a permanent dwelling here. And so now we're eagerly waiting for our Starlink to arrive so that we no longer have to drive almost an hour every time we need to upload a YouTube video.
This brings us to the end of today's video. And if you're interested in learning more about our off-grid caravan setup, you can check out the link on the screen now to see a full tour of the inside, and also how we set up our outdoor area to make the place feel like home. And as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe to our channel to see how we build a fully off-grid oasis here in the Northern Rivers of Australia.